So we're going to just briefly touch what 4.6 is all about. We've had a busy week here, busy couple of weeks here, because not only have we released 4.6 for Hypnotizer, but we've also done a big feature release for CorioMaster as well, the TV1 CorioMaster. So it's been busy here, but particularly today we're going to delve into 4.6. And we're going to talk about specifically, we will touch on other things as we go along, I'm sure, but we're going to look into Visualizer, and how we map mixes in, how we can visualize a model, how we can check what the audience can see. So, are you putting a piece of video content where the audience can actually see it? Could there be pillars or crowd or whatever in the way? And then we're going to look at TimelinePlus, which is really, really exciting for me. I spent a long time working in nonlinear editors in the past. So this timeline looks just so really powerful, but really, really simple to use. So we're going to show you how to pre-program a show, how to use presets and timeline, and then use the property panels to program it. And we're going to do all of that in a demo in a minute. So I can just feel the trepidation as Nick and Susie get ready. If you weren't with us last week, we talked about the whole story, which is now essentially you can use Green Hippo and the Hypnotizer to take you from the beginning to the end of the project. And we're really, wary that in the past you had to use other packages and come in and out to get from one end of the production curve to the other. And this essentially design, prepare, deliver is a simplified production curve. Last week we talked especially about how to plan your displays and the environment. So last week Nick showed us image of a 3D image of a building overlaid on a Google Maps image, and we were sort of seeing, we're checking that the projector was giving us the right coverage and the pixel size was right, and there was no areas that we wanted to cover. And that package, if you could use like a common 3D package like Cinema 4D, to me it looks like it's a dream to use. Today we're going to talk about prepare, particularly the top two. We're not going to really do that much on external control integration. We'll kind of sneak some of that into next week, because we wanted to give you plenty of time to talk about, so we could talk about the 3D visualization and the sequencer elements. And then next week, please come back again, and we're going to talk about deliver. So, and the thing I learned when I started working with Green Hippo, to start with, it's exquisite design tools, some brilliant workflows, but that's nothing without advanced control. And I've actually never worked on a device that has so much control. We'll see how much time we get next week. We'll try to bring some control, some external control in if we've got time. We'll talk about some of the other elements as well. So, Susie, have I covered that well enough? I'm always a bit wary that I'm still your apprentice. So, anything I've missed off there?
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much explains 4.6 in a nutshell. Obviously, it's new, it's exciting. There's some really cool new things in there. And if anyone does have any questions at any point, either about 4.6, about anything that we're talking about today, or even if you just got kind of any other general questions, feel free to either drop us an email or type them in the chat box, and we'll happily answer them as we go through.
Yeah, and if we see those come in, we will, if it's something Susie and Nick are doing right away, at that time, we'll try and sort of jump in there, so we don't have to keep on going backwards and forwards. So don't kind of think you have to wait to the end. If you got a question, just ask it, and Susie and I will try and pick it up and get it into the flow. So that's enough PowerPoint, I think. So let's have a look at some interface. So where are we going from here? Is it you,
so
Susie,
we're
or
going to
Nick?
jump into Visualizer, and hopefully Nick's going to share his screen. You might need to stop sharing first, Mark.
Yeah, I'm there.
There it is. All right. Can we all see this, I assume? Coming through okay?
Yeah, clear.
Good stuff. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. So as Mark and Susie mentioned, I'm going to spend some time talking about Visualizer and how we can get from your design phase to now kind of your prepare phase and do some pre-visualization. And Susie will cover after how we can also use Visualizer inside of Timeline. But yeah, I just want to kind of go over how we get set up with a scene in Visualizer. So Visualizer is actually shape that's built inside of Zookeeper. So a lot of the things that we talked about last week, or if you've ever gone through shape training, done the Hippo School online, it'll feel it right at home for you. So the same move controls are in place. If you click and hold 1 and drag around, it will pan the camera around. 2 and click and drag will zoom the camera in and out, or using the mouse wheel. And 3 and click and drag will orbit around your scene. As you can see, we've got a nice model here loaded in. It's just a small theater. Actually, it's a fairly decent sized theater with this guy standing in the middle here, and some screens playing some content. So all of this is being rendered in real time, so you can use it to check your content, make sure it's hitting the screens the way you want, program out your sequences. If you're doing a show, you can go scene by scene and kind of check that all of your programming is in, it looks the way you want it to before you get the site. And, then you can kind of make small adjustments from there. So I'm just going to scrap all of this and kind of go over how we get to this point. So at the top here, we have our toolbar. The first option is a new project. So that just wipes everything out of the Visualizer, gets us to a blank slate. The next option is the open project. And from here, we can open any existing shape file that we have. So if we've done the time, maybe we've brought this in, done some case study work on it, or even just brought it into shape on its own to just kind of do some checking, set up our Hypnotizer inputs in shape. We can go to any project that we have, click on it and load it back in just the way we want. We also have a save button. So if, I've loaded all this in, I can save it somewhere else with a different name. A save as if you've made, done something a little bit different from a previous version. And then also an import model option. So this is how we would get to this sort of space without using shape. So there are a couple ways to bring in your own models. You can either load it in shape, the shape app itself, save it from there and open it back up in here. Or we can actually import a model directly into the Visualizer if you have it all set up. So if I go ahead and click import, in 4.6, we've included for you guys a pile of just sort of default scenes. We took a look at one last week, which was the down hall. This one specifically is the theater. All of these models should have some textures built in for you so they look a little bit nice. And also all of the Hippo inputs are kind of already set up for you and ready to go on how we think is probably best for like a generic use case. So I'm just going to hit theater and hit open. And then we get presented with the same exact options that you would if you were importing the model into shape. So we can choose to import materials, things like remap the Hippo sources, which is something that is a very cool feature in 4.6 is now when you're creating your model in your 3D editor, something like Blender, Cinema, 3ds, whatever you want. If you've taken the time to think it out ahead of time and you say, yeah, I know this is going to be my mix 1, these things are going to be my mix 2, you can actually create a material with that name and bring it in. And when you import it, it will automatically map those surfaces. So the way we type that is actually hippo _ 01 or 02 all the way through 24, and it will automatically map your input sources for you. So when I hit OK, you'll see that the model is going to load up. All of my textures are going to come in. And I've already got some mixes set up, but if I set this back to the way it would be by default, you can see that we've got the Hypnotizer input test cards up here. Going back up to the top through our toolbar, we also have an undo, a redo, an enable network button, which allows the shape visualizer to talk directly to the shape application. So if you've loaded up a project in the shape application and maybe you're making some edits like moving some screens here and there, in the visualizer we actually don't have any editing controls at all. So what you see is kind of what you get. But this is where if you enable the network and add it to the shape app, you can make changes and see it update live in the visualizer as well. And then the last and maybe the most important of the options is the input manager. So this is where we tell it what Hippo 1 is going to be, what Hippo 2, 3, and 4 are all going to be looking at to get their content for those screens. So just like the input manager in the Shape app, if you just pop it open, we've got drop downs for each of the inputs where I can go and assign different mixes to the different screens in here and also change their levels. You know, if one's maybe too bright, I can bring down the level a little bit and dim it down. Or more importantly, this works really well with texture mappers and kind of choosing the way that you want to blend content on your surfaces. Just below these tools, we also have some display options. So the first is the display mode, whether we want to look at it in solid, which may not do us much good. Ultimately, we're probably in here to look at the textured mode, but all of these are in here as well. And then the different cameras we can look through. So right now we're looking through the free camera, which allows us to pan and rotate and move around our scene. We also have the different isometric views, but most importantly at the bottom, we can view the scene through certain projectors that we've set up. So think of the projectors for Visualizer, kind of like cameras. So I can set views that I would want to be looking through. Maybe I want to look through the lower seating, see how an audience member would see it from this angle versus maybe from the mezzanine or the balcony. However we want to look at the scene, you can take that time ahead of time, maybe during the design phase, and put in some projectors and just get ready for your visualization to make it a little bit easier on you. And then the last option, all the way on the right hand side, is an auto reload project button, which allows us to, if you've imported a model, saved this file, and then opened it up in Shape, if this option's turned on, anytime you close Zookeeper and then reopen Zookeeper, we will automatically load the same project back in for you. Otherwise, it'll load to a blank show every time.